of you are requested, please mute yourself during the session. There would be a query session after the webinar, so you can unmute yourself that time and you can discuss with the expert.
Can you see my screen now?
The full screen view, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see now?
Yeah, I can see now, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. So very good evening all. On behalf of Astron E-College, I, Ms. Paulumi Banerjee, welcome you on board for the webinar session on risk assessment tool using Japanese technology, patient safety first. So as you all are aware that Astron Institute of International Studies is the first in the country to be accredited by NABIT for the online courses. And we have recently launched Astron E-College under the umbrella of Astron Institute of International Studies. Astron E-College is an online portal for working professionals, specially catering to healthcare professionals. The courses are pre-recorded video-based sessions of 2 to 3 hours duration. However, it is flexible as per the student convenient. They can do the course. The courses comprises of various modules and assignment. On completion of the course, the student will get the globally recognized certificate, and the certificate has lifetime validity. In addition to healthcare domain, exclusive courses in soft skill, motivationals, and banking and finance domain are also available. So for more details, you can just log into www.astronecollege.com. I will share the link in the chat box. You can just check out our courses, and you can just connect us in 96500422 number also. Now I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Deepak Agarkhet, who is our honored speaker for the session. He is General Manager at IISc Medical School Foundation, Bangalore, having more than 30 years of experience in the healthcare industry. He is specialized in hospital facility management, medical device management, healthcare quality, and patient safety. He is NABH Technical Assessor for Hospital Facilities and Technical Expert for NABL Medical Device Standards, and also co-chair for Indian Biomedical School Consortium at AMTZ, which is a part of Quality Council of India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. My name is Deepak, as introduced. So I'm currently working in IISc Medical School Foundation as a General Manager. Today's presentation is about risk mitigation using Japanese tools as a part of the patient safety. Namaste once again to all of you. I would like to show some of the pictures which you will come across in the hospital. This is in the emergency area where a patient is brought in and a defibrillation is going on. This is an ICU scenario where a patient is connected to a ventilator, patient is connected to the many other medical equipments like syringe pump, infusion pump, and physiological monitor. This is a typical operation theater where operation is going on with the patient, the clinicians, the nurses, and technicians around. So in all these, you can see a question mark has been put. So what is there in this? So this is a common scenario in any of the hospital and day-to-day practices. But there is something which need to be looked into so that safety of the patient and the staff can be clearly understood from all these, how it can be done. So let's go into the process. So for all these things, whether the patient is being given a shock in the emergency, whether the patient in the ICU connected to the patient monitor and other medical equipments, whether the operation is going on, there has to be set of activities. So process is basically a series of actions that lead to desired results or the output. Like in the operation theater, the desired result is patient has been operated for the particular disease, and the set of activities or actions need to be performed so that a desired results can be achieved. So there are many processes in any of the healthcare delivery system or any of the work which we undertake. So the process, for example, handling the hazardous material in the hospital is one process, how to handle it. Then medication administration to a patient itself is a process. Electrical power changeover from a city power to the diesel is a process, or giving the CPR is a process. So for any process, there is a possibility of a failure. Okay, so let's understand what is a failure. Failure is the manner in which the product or a part or a service does not meet the customer expectation. For example, the spillage of a chemicals of a wet film process on a staff. As you saw earlier slide, there is a process. So the failure of a process can be a spillage of a chemical. So the earlier we saw process of medication management, wrong dosage to a patient is a failure. We saw earlier a process wherein the power is been changing from the city power to the DG. No electricity in the patient ward because of the non-switching over is a failure. Similarly, non-functioning of a defibrillator. So these are the failures. So any process, there will be failures. So let's understand the effect of the failure. Effect of a failure is basically a study wherein the customer could be external or internal. The effects of can be anything. Either it can be an injury to a staff, or it can be an injury to a patient. It can be a delay in the service, or it may not be relevant. So what we're trying to say is there is a process. Process is set of activities. Each activity may have a possibility of failure, and each failure has an effect. Some effect can be severe, some can be moderate, some can be minor. So let's understand further. So we understood a process. So let's understand what is hazard, harm, risk, and safety. Because the presently what we are trying to understand is a risk mitigation. So in order to understand the risk mitigation, we need to understand what is hazard, harm, risk, as well as safety. You can see a picture here. A person is trying to take out the electrical cable, but there is an exposure of the cable. So this is a hazardous condition. Hazard is a potential source of harm. Here, the harm has not happened. Person has not touched, but if he touches, there is a source of condition, the condition wherein hazardous condition is there. You can see a picture here. A patient, the person is having a shock. Okay, there is a electrical socket is open, which is a hazardous condition. He has accidentally touched and he has got a shock. So what is a harm? Harm is basically a physical injury or a damage to the health of a people or damage to a property or the environment. From a hazardous condition, harm is going to happen. So we need to watch for a hazardous condition. And what is risk? Because we are all talking about a risk mitigation. Risk is nothing but a combination of probability of occurrence of the harm. Okay, how probable the harm can occur, and what is the severity of the harm. A severity here, a shock has patient got a shock, the severity may be more. If there is something, if he is about to touch something which he had not done, okay, the severity is less. So the risk factor, so basically is a combination of probability of occurrence of the harm and the severity of the harm. So risk we classify low risk, medium risk and high risk. So what we ultimately want is a safety. Safety is what? A freedom from unacceptable risk. All we are trying to do from last few slides, I was trying to show the pictures. We are trying to achieve the safety, but we have the various conditions, various processes are there. So in each of the process, whether a patient in the operation theater or a picture wherein I have shown a patient is being given a shock in the emergency, we are trying to achieve a safety. So in order to achieve a safety, I need to understand what are the hazardous conditions which can be seen in that process, what harm can happen, and how can I reduce the harm so that a risk level is being low. With a low risk, a safety is going to be high. So now let's understand what is unsafe condition. Okay, so in a hospital scenario, a defective machine, like for example a defibrillator defective, is an unsafe condition. A material which is defective, like an expired medicine, is an unsafe condition. A method, there is no process set of activities, standard set of activities to achieve a desired result, is also basically an unsafe condition. And in an environment, there is no proper temperature, humidity, lux level. All these things are unsafe conditions. Okay, so is unsafe condition is the only thing which can lead to an accident? No, there is something more, which is unsafe act. What is an unsafe act? Okay, basically the cause is why the unsafe act can happen. A lack of knowledge for any person to operate an equipment, a lack of knowledge for any person to give a medication, lack of experience or lack of intention to work. So these are unsafe acts. It can be human error also, absent-minded, changing of attention level, shortcut or guess. Human errors are more prone. You might have seen the nurses working in shift and continuing further in the second shift and sometime going to third shift. This is an unsafe act because you have to have proper attention level. Can you get an attention level when you are working 24 hours continuously? It's very difficult. So unsafe condition and unsafe act, these are the two major combinations which will result into an accident. Okay, so the accident is a combination of unsafe condition and unsafe act. You can see here the unsafe condition is there, okay, and unsafe act from a person is there. So then the accident is going to happen. So what we are trying to see and trying to achieve through this study is how can we reduce the accident? How can increase the safety? How can we reduce the risk? So you can see here, there is an x-axis which is a unsafe action. There is a y-axis unsafe condition. So here at the beginning there is a safe condition, then safe action. But when you come here further, okay, unsafe condition, unsafe act. So this particular combination is what we want to avoid. Okay, unsafe condition is, for example, non-functional defibrillator in a crash cart. In this example, let us take. Unsafe act is a untrained RMO on ACLS or untrained nurse while drawing the blood sample. So if these two unsafe condition and unsafe act is there, then we may end up in an accident. One more example, let us see. Here, case study we are going to take here in the coming slides. A patient is being entrapped along with the technician with an oxygen cylinder, which is a metallic, which has gone and hit the magnet of MRI, and patient has come in between, and unfortunately technician was holding and ward boy was holding, and he also was pulled by the magnet because he was holding the oxygen cylinder. So here unsafe condition is there. Okay, why unsafe condition? The door was open so that anybody can enter. Unsafe act. A ward boy was not knowing that he cannot take the metallic thing inside the MRI gantry room. So both have resulted into the condition which is an accident wherein there is a fatal injury which has happened to the concerned person. So what are the types of risk which are there in the hospital? So far we talked about the process, we talked about the various types of the failures in a process, what is the effect of the failure. Then we also went on to discuss about the various the unsafe acts and unsafe conditions. So what are the different risks? The risk is a clinical risk which can happen. The clinical risk is something which we need to avoid. Patient has come with some clinical condition. A financial risk can also happen in hospital. Okay, patient has come with an estimate, given an estimate of 2 lakh rupees for a particular surgery, but it turned out to be 10 lakh. So it's the risk which has happened. Why the financial risk has happened, we need to look into. A safety risk, there is a risk which can be a risk which is to a patient or to an employee, a safety risk. A legal risk which can happen to hospital because of the erroneous results or whatever the perception of a patient for legal actions. A technological risk can also be one of the risks. So the type of the risk are customer related, okay, here the patient related, or data loss risk can also happen. Employee related risk can also happen. Risk related to a natural calamities or hazards can also happen. So the various types of risk which are there in the hospital. So now, what is a risk assessment? Because today's topic is all about how to assess the risk and how to come with an action which will reduce the risk. Okay. A risk assessment is a thorough look at your workplace in a hospital to identify those things, situations, processes that may cause harm, particularly to the people. People can be patient, relatives, or the staff. Then evaluate how likely and severe the risk is and decide what measures should be in place to effectively prevent or control the harm from happening. So that's all about the risk assessment. Further to that, why risk assessment is important? Create the awareness of hazards and risk. Identify who may be at a risk. Okay, it may be employee, it can be cleaner, a visitor, contractor, public, a patient. Determine if the existing control measures are adequate or more should be done. It's very, very important. If you are having a more risk, more harms happening on a regular basis, then you may lose the customers. It may come in headlines. Okay, so you need to assess what is your existing control measures and prevent the injuries or illness so that it can be done at the design stage during the hospital or as a process so that we have a control on our process so that a risk level has been reduced, if not eradicated. Okay, and prioritize the hazards and control measures. There are so many processes are there, so many the hazardous conditions are there. So which are the hazard conditions we need to attack? Okay, because hospital is not a place wherein only few set of processes are there. There are hundreds of processes. If you can see in NABH, 683 objective elements have been put. So each will have their own process. So many sub processes are there. So the risks are there in each. So hazardous conditions are there. So we need to prioritize which hazardous condition we need to attack first. So let's see. So now let's come to the today's topic, wherein we are talking about a Japanese tool. So there are various tools are there. There is nothing great about a Japanese tool. It's one of the tool, but if it is being effectively used, it is going to be equally same as what can be used like a FMEA tool. So let's understand. So what is a Japanese tool is all about? So the tool has three major activities, wherein first you need to go and check in your workplace, which is been called as a gemba in Japanese term, to see what is the hazardous condition, okay, and try to check the severity of it, okay. So we use something called as a 2S technique, then we call KY technique, then we come to a risk assessment score. Once we have a risk assessment, then we come with a actions to mitigate it, then we come with some new standard operating procedures or work instructions and training. So basically 2S, KY, RA and work instruction. These are the four things which need to be done so that a risk can be mitigated. So let's go into the detail to understand these things. First, let us understand about 2S. So I am sure you may be knowing one of the Japanese tool called as a 5S. So out of the 5S, so 2S is what is being used basically as a part of the risk assessment. First one is out of 2S, first S is SOT. Okay, SOT is basically when you are in a workplace, segregate what is needed, what is not needed, or what is needed later, and what is not needed, so you can discard it. Okay, so this will ensure that whatever is needed is been available in a short time, and which is not needed or maybe needed maybe after a month is kept at a place which is away, so that unnecessarily movement is being avoided. So this is one of the first thing which need to be done in a workplace, so that we can start working towards reduction of a risk. So you might have seen that so many garbage, unused things are being kept in your workplace. Are they really needed? If they are needed, are they needed on a regular basis? In regular basis also, are they needed on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis? Can be sorted accordingly. Those things which are not needed, you put it in a red bin, and later on it can be discarded. Okay, sort means that we remove all the items from the workplace that are not needed for a current production or operation. Okay, so the tag word is when in doubt, move it out. If something which is in doubt, if it is, oh, it can be used, may not be used, then keep it away from your regular workplace. Second is storage. Once you have taken out the things which are not needed and those which are needed are being kept, so it has to be properly kept. You can see here an example of the toolbox of an engineering toolbox. So which is being kept like this. Okay, so these are all needed. Okay, in the first case, all needed have been kept. Now, can I expect to get anything immediately? No, because they have not been arranged in a proper way. So if you arrange it, so you put in a proper storage, then it's easy for you to get the things. So we arrange the needed items so that they are easy to use and label them so that anyone can find them and move them out. So this is what is needed as a part of the second S. So first S will ensure that the room is being properly clean and what is being needed are being kept and what is not being needed is being disposed of. And once those which is needed are being kept, properly kept, which is a set in order or storage. So this is what need to be done on regular basis in your workplace. This is first step, because what we are trying to do, a risk assessment, is proactively. We are not doing it reactively. We are trying to mitigate the risk before something happens, incident happens. So that's why we are trying to implement this tool, Japanese tool, out of which we have talked about 2S. Okay, the 2S is place for everything and everything in its place. So place for everything. So these are all needed. There is a place for everything and everything in its place. Okay, so that we can easily get those items. Okay, now second step to achieve the risk mitigation is KY technique. Okay, let's understand what is KY technique. KY is basically a Japanese word which is called as a kick in yochi. Okay, so is basically a danger prediction. KY is a danger prediction. So we are trying to predict the danger. We are trying to see the hazardous condition. Okay, so basically it's been done. Step is, what is the potential risk which we are having? Identify the point of risk. Okay, which is the point of risk, and then decide what need to be done, and then confirm the solution with a touch and call. So let's understand the KY technique in detail. Okay, as I said, KYT is hazard prediction training. Okay, which is called, K is kick-in, is basically Japanese word hazard. Yochi is a prediction. Okay, so you are trying to predict the hazard and work towards it. Okay, so it's basically a Japanese traditional prevention method to hazard and one of the risk assessment tool. Okay, there are many types of tools for KYT. Okay, so let's go into the brief about various KY tools which are there. Photo KYT, solving problem KYT, incident reporting KYT, ordering and undertaking KYT, touch and call, point and call. So by doing this, so increase the risk of sensitivity training. Risk sensitivity training is basically all the people, because we are all working in our place, we don't know what are the risk conditions which are there, because we have never come across those things. Our knowledge is less. For example, as given example, the person, ward boy, who was entering into the MRI room was not knowing that metallic things should not be taken. So he was not aware. So by using the KY technique, risk sensitivity of the people is going to increase. So which are the type of KYT? As I said, illustration KYT, wherein you see you go there, you take one picture, and all of you come and sit together and see what are the possible hazardous conditions can happen here. For example, in this picture, hazard can happen, completely power blackout can happen. Okay, hazardous condition can happen, the instruments which are there are broken. Hazardous condition is the person who is not there, have got a person who is doing surgery, suddenly gets into a severe medical condition. So these are the various. So then you start looking into the what are the actions to be taken. Then another KY technique is pointing and calling. Okay, you are trying to get some medicines for the patients and you are trying to say whether they are, all the numbers are there or not, pointing and calling. Third is a touch and call, wherein you are going to touch as a team and call and sensitize. Third is stretch and call. So this is stretch and call. So these are the 4 KY techniques. So let's go into a brief about each of the KY technique. Okay. So as I said, KY technique is hazard prediction. Okay. So illustration KY technique, as I said, first step is understand the actual situation, to visit the location as a team, watch carefully the area and come back to the boardroom and brainstorm on the hidden hazardous condition. As I said, I gave a picture of a operation going on. First, you have to understand the situation. Means first you have to know what is actually happens in the operation theater, which operation theater we are going. Okay, and watch carefully the area and take pictures and come back to the boardroom and brainstorm and try to see what are the hidden hazardous conditions. Second step is to understand the risk of each hazardous pointed out by the team. So when you find out, okay, there are so many hazardous conditions, like I was mentioning, the hazardous condition is like, for example, the power blackout can happen during the operation, is one of the hazardous condition. So what is the harm which can happen? A harm which can happen is complete blackout. A surgery is there, a drill is inside the patient when the operation is happening. So when completely power blackout can happen, so drill can go to some other place inside the body and it can harm. Okay, so you're trying to understand which are the various risks of each of the hazards pointed out. Third step is, once you find out, okay, there is going to be a power blackout, what is the countermeasures which need to be taken so that the hazard conditions can be avoided? So that's a third step. And fourth is, set up a target date for a closure and track the progress of hidden risk. So you have understood that yes, there is a possibility of a power failure. So then try to understand why power failure can happen. Probably it's because the our power which has been connected is not the UPS which has been connected. Probably UPS is not serviced. So there is possibility that UPS may break down. There is a possibility that the power failure can happen because the OT surgical lights which are there, the bulbs may fuse off. Okay, the other bulb may not take over. So there may be various things. So try to come with the action points and try to close the hidden risk. So this is an illustration KYT. You may be feeling that what is this? Going there and understanding, it looks very simple, but it's one of the powerful technique which can be used if we as a team go there and identify the things and come back and work towards the risk mitigation. You can see here a scenario where a patient is being connected to the various lines. Patient is in the ICU setup. So there are the hidden hazards are there. So what are those things and what you do and what are the dangers? So by looking at this, so the team can identify, okay, these are the hazardous conditions. Like, let me explain one of the conditions. The water is the body fluid is dripping here, okay, and there's an extension cable here so that it may go there and it is short circuit can happen. There is a flower plot here during the patient who is getting investigated or during the rounds by the clinicians, it may accidentally touch and it may fall down. So various hazardous conditions have been identified. So once you identify the hazardous condition, what need to be done is you need to come with the action plan. Okay, step one, you need to find out which are the potential hazards. Okay, let's take one example. Okay, cup is a hazard. In the previous the diagram. What is the injury? Injury to health of a people or a damage to property. It can fall down and it may injure. What is the risk? It is a medium risk. Okay, because high probable as it is expected to be unstable base. Okay, the base is unstable. You can see in the previous picture, it's put in a cantilever position. So it's a, but the damage may not be severe. It's a the medium. So like that. And what's the countermeasure to be taken? We understood the risk. The countermeasure is implement the 5S. Keep the keep the cup on a bedside locker and do not use the slider to place the items. So this is the countermeasure. And when it is to be closed, we have put a target date. So like that, each of the hazardous condition, we have come with what harm can happen, what are the type of risk, level of risk, high risk or low risk, what is the countermeasure, and when it is to be closed. And of course, you need to attack on those which are having a high risk. Second KY technique is pointing and calling. Pointing at a target object by stretch arm and finger and stating out loud and listen own sound. Example. So here what is happening is a nurse along with the OT technician are taking the inventory inside the operation theater. Okay. She's asking him, OT medicine stock, okay. She's asking. He's saying, okay. She's pointing out each one by one item and she's asking. So why this has been done? Is it necessary? It cannot be done visually. You can see here a graph. One of the Japanese Railway Technical Research Institute have done a study. Only seeing by eyes, the mistake is around 2.4%. But by calling, it will reduce to 1%. By pointing, 0.7%. By pointing and calling, it reduces to 0.4%. So that's why the pointing and calling technique can be used. This technique can be used for a crash cart. As you know, the crash cart is one of the important the thing which has been used in the critical areas, and the inventories in that are very, very important. Certain medicines, if it is not there, when the patient have a crash, so then if it is not there, it's going to be a big problem. So, and the crash cart is usually handed over shift by one nurse to other. By pointing and calling, so you are going to reduce the risk. Otherwise, what normally people do is they have a checklist, everybody will tick the checklist without actually seeing it. And once an audit happens, then we find out that certain things are missing. So pointing and calling is another KY technique. So here you can see, look at an object, point at it, raise your right hand with your right ear and bring your hand down. So like this, is it okay? So in this way, so you are trying to point it out and you are trying to tell loudly to the person so that other person will respond it. Touch and call. If there are many people are there, if there is a common activities to be used, so then the touch and call is being used. So it's then it's pointing and saying it loud together. So this is what is being done. So the example is one of the team here, they are trying to say that we take care of the patients, all the basic needs while doing an examination. They are trying to take an oath among themselves. So they are touch and call, so that when they are going for a work, so this is there at the back of their mind, so that they will avoid or reduce the mistakes. So the touch and call is also one of the technique, KY technique. Stretch and call is a group activity. Like for example, here we are all for the patient safety first. We are trying to say patient safety first. So by saying that, we are trying to say that, okay, we are trying to address the patient safety issues on a regular basis on all walk of our life in the hospital. So this is a stretch and call. all the members stretch their hand and make first fist posture, and all will speak loudly after the leader gives the signal. So outcome, what is the final outcome of the KYT? Why KYT is to be done? As I said, it increases the risk sensitivity. People will get to know what are the risks. They will be sensitive to the risk. Prevent the accident in the near miss stage. So accident can be, what is a near miss? Near miss is a condition like it's about to happen, accident, but it has not happened. For example, you are about to give a wrong medicine to a patient, it has not given, it's a near miss condition. So with the KY technique, so we can prevent the accidents, enhance the safety culture. The safety culture is been enhanced in each of the areas. And every day Kaizen is a continuous improvement culture is developed. Okay, so now let's take one further example. We have a lion. Okay, so we are taking this as an example, but we will relate it to the some of the our day-to-day activity. Okay, so lion is being used. Okay, so the hazard condition is anything that can cause harm or that you know. Okay, this is a hazard condition. If you go near to that, so it's a hazard condition. What is the risk? Okay, so the risk is it can be high or low. Okay, now the distance between the lion and a human, if the person is coming near to this, risk is very, very high. Okay, now how to do the risk assessment? Identify the hazard. So you have identified the hazard, you have a hazard, lion is there. Estimate the degree of hazard. What is the possibility and the severity of the accident? Okay, what can happen if I go near to it? It can only bite or it can kill. If it is killed, it's going to kill, then the risk is very high. Evaluate the risk level. That's what I'm trying to evaluate. And study the risk reduction measures. What can be done so that the lion cannot attack me? Okay, and determine the measures and implement it. How can I implement it? So this is what need to be done as a risk assessment. Okay, first step is identify. Okay, danger that lion may bite you if you go near to the lion area. Okay, person may be bitten while feeding the lion. So the lion is there. Let's say it's a zoo. Okay, so when you are going to feed the lion, so there is a possibility that it's a hazardous condition. Okay, can you avoid it? You cannot avoid it because the lion is to be there. It cannot be given without food. It cannot stay without food. So you have to go to that hazardous condition is going to happen. Okay, estimate the degree of hazard. What can be the degree of hazard can happen? So now here, the risk assessment, I cannot just say by seeing certain thing, oh, risk is high, risk is medium, risk is low. There has to be a numerical number to achieve whether risk is high, low, or medium. To do that, we are trying to understand, we are trying to measure it. How do we measure? First is frequency of occurrence of the hazardous condition. Now, frequency of occurrence can be given high, medium, and low. The evaluation point is being given as a 4, 5, 4, and 3. 5 is high. For example, if you are feeding the lion on a daily basis, then you are going near to the hazardous condition. The frequency is high. If you are feeding once in a while to a lion, okay, maybe once in a week, so then it's a low. So it depends on the actual hazardous condition, the frequency will happen. We'll get to know. And what is the severity of an accident? In case if you go, you have to go near to the lion. In case if you go near to the lion, if it is not chained, the fatal injury can happen. Injury can be a death or a damage of the parts. It can be lost time of injury or no lost time of injury. So there can be various degree of accidents can happen. So now for a fatal injury, the score is 12. For a lost time injury, it's a 6, and not lost time is 2. So this is the score which is for a accident severity. Third one is what is the occurrence possibility? With the current process, what is the possible occurrence can happen? with the current process, with the current cage which is there, with no cage, or the cage with the bigger holes, probability of occurrence can be high, or it can be medium, or it can be low. We need to know what exactly is the scenario. Based on that, we'll be able to understand the occurrence possibility. So basically, we are trying to talk about frequency of the work, then accidental severity and occurrence possibility. So, and for each, there are 3 levels, and each level has a score. And if we add all these scores, then we'll get a risk evaluation point. Okay, so you can see here frequency plus degree of accident plus possibility. Okay, all these things added is going to get. For a current example, so we have a line is there is no cage, and the person is going to go and feed a meat to a lion. So the frequency of work is daily, because daily the lion has to be fed. Okay, so then I have to give a score of 5. Okay, and degree of accident, what accident can happen? Lion can kill him. Okay, so because lion is a dangerous, so probably if it was a goat, if you are feeding something, then the degree of accident is nothing. Okay, and what is the possibility? Currently there is no fence, possibility is very high. If that is the case, then the score is 8. If I add 5 plus 12 plus 8, it comes to 25. If 25 is there, then probably risk level is very high. So now we are trying to identify the risk score to attack on those which is a high score. How did you attack it? By looking into 3 aspects: frequency of the work, degree of accident, and possibility. Okay, now what can be done? Because end of the exercise is not just understanding the risk level. What we need to do is reduce the risk. How can I reduce the risk? You can reduce the risk by putting a fence and have a maybe proper something like a pass box. You open the pass box, keep the meat and close it so that it can be opened automatically at the other side, and the lion can eat it. So the risk, then what can happen is occurrence possibility is going to reduce. You are not going to reduce the frequency of the work, because you have to go near to the lion. Accident severity can still happen. For example, you have put a fence. For some reason, fence is not working. Then if the lion is going to attack, the severity is still going to happen. Occurrence possibility, probably you have reduced by putting the fence. So by doing this, you are trying to reduce. So you can see here a risk level from 19 to 25 is a rank A. We will be highly concerned if there is a rank A. Rank A has been further divided to rank AA or AB. Similarly, low risk can be rank C, which can be CC. Okay, so in this way, we are going to address it. So now how can we reduce the risk? One is eliminate the risk. So how can I eliminate? Can the lion be taken out from the circus or a zoo? If I take it out, it is completely eliminated. But in some of the processes, some of the things cannot be eliminated. For example, MRI in a super specialty hospital cannot be eliminated. So risk will be associated. What can be done? Other way is substitution. Okay, if there is instead of lion, we can bring something else, a substitution. Or isolation of hazard. You can isolate the hazard. Okay, you can bring some engineering measures, or you can bring some signages. You can have a proper PPE to the people. All these things are trying to reduce the risk, okay, by adopting the control measures. So by adopting the control measures, for example, here you can eliminate. Can I eliminate the lion in the circus, or can I eliminate the lion in our zoo? So if that's one, then it is automatically reduced. If you know it's a line is very much needed, then you can put a cage, or you can put the administrative, you can put a chain so that you are giving and then it will come and pick up, or you can have a proper PP. So you have to decide which type of reduction methodology you need to adopt. This is just one example given, so you can use it in your day-to-day activity so that you can implement a risk reduction technique. So I'm giving one example here of a hospital kitchen wherein a chef is there. He has the grinder machine. He has to put a meat on a daily basis and grind it. You can see here the severity, what can happen if he accidentally puts his hand, the finger can be lost. Okay, frequency, every day he has to work because there is a non-veg, it's a non-veg restaurant. Okay, possibility, any protection, currently there is no protection. So with all these things, if I add, it comes to 25. So what are the countermeasures? Because you know that there's a risk here, he may lose his finger. Okay, so countermeasure is you just put a mesh. So what you did essentially is severity, we could not do change. Frequency you cannot change because every day have to work. So 8 has become 1. So you have put the possibility has been reduced because you have a mesh. So even if he puts a hand accidentally, so it will not going to touch the plate. Another example is the administrative staff which is there. So there is a cable is there, a severity maybe 2 or 6. It's not severe. Okay, frequency, daily the person has to move around. Possibility is high right now. Okay, so the rank is BC. So countermeasure is you have conduit which is going inside your flooring so that you will not get to know. So you have eliminated it here. Yeah. So in this way, you are trying to understand the risk score and trying to reduce it. As a manager, we are all managers. Look at the actual workplace condition. So I gave one example. So you have to look at the workplace condition, implement all the measures, and be able to establish the actual conditions, activities of the workplace. Okay, so that you will be able to explain confidence in achieving the zero incidents. So how it can be done? Once you put a measures, so it should not happen like the again falling back to the old practice, which is very, very common. So you can create a work instruction, and work instruction can be detailed work instruction, which will give each step, what are the key points and what visualization of these things, so that it is being displayed on the wall so that everybody knows this need to be followed. For example, if a person has to go and give the meat to a lion, which is in the cage, so there is a work instruction is there, exactly the same thing has to be followed. If the work instruction or SOP is not there, then whatever the measures we do is going to fall flat. Okay. So now let me quickly take you through one case study, which I was talking about. So this is a real thing which has happened in Nair Hospital, where a death by negligence of a MRI, where the person has been stuck in MRI because of the negligence. Why the negligence? Because of the lack of knowledge. So let's look into this. So MRI being a magnetic, so that if accidentally some person goes inside and comes in contact with the magnet, with the metallic thing, there's going to be an injury. Okay, so this is one floor plan of the where MRI machine is being put. You can see here, it's a plan wherein MRI machine is here. Okay, the patient is coming like this. Patient is coming to reception. From reception, the patient is going to the holding area. Patient is lying there. When patient is called in, patient goes from here and goes inside to through the door inside the magnet room, and the scan is going to happen. Okay, so this is the current process which is being followed. Now, what is the Kaizen idea? Kaizen means continuous improvement. So what's the idea description? Staff, patient, and relative awareness on MRI, not having a metric objectives. That's what we want. And a zoning of the MRI area as per the American College of Radiology magnetic resonance safe practices to be followed. Visualization of a MRI safety at a various patient pathways. Installation of a nurse call and access control in MRI entry. Awareness of the member and work instruction. This is what we want to do. How do we achieve it? We can have an access control door to restrict the movement of any person entering into the MRI. Okay, and benchmarking with the best practices. So what can be done? So these are the points which we thought. So resulting is restrict the movement in the MRI area, because we have put the access control so that anybody cannot enter into that. MRI staff members can now concentrate on scan rather than the door, because if the door is open, every time the technician has to see which patient is going, who is going inside. So now there is access control, only limited people can go in, the technician can focus on the patients. And avoided probable worst scenario, staff being hit by the metallic. So this can be avoided because you have an access control. And besides that, you have a visual display wherein it shows, okay, what is a hazardous condition. You also have a corridor wherein there is a signage of a restricted area. Anybody and everybody cannot enter in this area. So the steps for implementation: sharing of unsafe condition and news of MRI accident to all the people, so sensitizing the people. Then creating the zones. So now we have created 4 zones here as per the ACR guidelines. Zone 1 is anybody can go in that zone. Zone 2 is only the radiology reception, patient relatives can go. Zone 3 is mainly console room, wherein only the transfer of the patient happens. Zone 4 is where actually patient is scanned. And then signages which can be put, call bell for a MRI entry door to support the technician to open the door, installation of access control so that anybody and everybody cannot go into the MRI, training to the staff on what is to be done, and a regular monitoring and auditing. So this is visualization of the everything, so that people are aware that, okay, nobody should go with a magnet inside the MRI. And future plan is put a safety door, wherein a metallic door, if somebody is going with a pacemaker or implant, immediately it gives a buzzer. So that, and also there is a signage, so that patients and relatives are also been aware besides the staff. Okay, so now let's come back to our risk assessment score. Initially, risk assessment was frequency of the work is 5, because daily the patient has to go for a MRI. The MRI cannot be avoided. Patient taking into MRI cannot be avoided. It's 5. Fatal injury can happen, which can kill the patient or any person inside the gantry. It's 12. And current measures, there is no access control. Okay, so there is a score is 4. So the current Kaizen activity, if I add, it's 21. So when I put the access control door, so that becomes, so 4 has become 1, so it has become 18. So the risk level has reduced. So if you can see here, before Kaizen activity, there's a reception, there's a patient holding area, there's a magnet, there's a control room. So there is no zoning. So now the zones have been put. As you can see here, zone 4 is where the magnet is there. Zone 3 is where transfer is happening. Zone 2 is where the patient dressing in holding and reception. Zone 1 is anything outside this. Okay. So what are the benefits? So the signages have been put. The people know which are the zones, where what is to be done. Okay. This is a video which shows what exactly is been happening based on this Kaizen activity. Let's see this. Patient is coming in to the MRI, going to the reception. The patient file is being seen. Patient is being directed by the receptionist to the holding area. The patient is taken to the holding area. Okay, so which is a zone 1. In the zone 1, the nurse is going to assess the patient. Nurse is going to check whether patient has any the previous operations, whether patient is having any metallic things, so she can scan through a metal detector, so everything is okay or not. After that only she is going to send the patient for further scanning. So this is what is being done to check is there any metallic things are there inside the patient. If it is not, she is giving the instruction to the ward boy. The ward boy is going. So now he is going to the zone 2, okay, which is a restricted area. Okay, so now zone 2. So the patient is getting in. Nurse is escorting the patient. Okay, and patient is taken in, and there is an access control which has been put. So now she has put a nurse call, and the people inside are going to come out, the technicians, and they are going to open it, and patient is taken in. So the precaution has been taken that the only after the proper scrutiny, the patient is been taken to the desired gantry. This is an article which is basically on the tackling of the MR accident. So in nutshell, what I was trying to present it today was, there is a hospital is full of various processes. Each process, there are various activities. The activities, there is a failures can happen. The failures will have an effect. Effect can be severe. So you have to identify in the each of your workplace what is a hazard condition, what harm it can happen, what degree of risk it can happen. So risk is being addressed by various the technique which I said. So one is by implementing 2S in the workplace, then using a KY risk risk prediction, increasing the sensitivity of the people, then identifying the risk score, attacking on the high risk score, and trying to come with a mitigation strategy. With this, I also took a case study of the MRI, wherein a patient is not been allowed to go, or anybody is not allowed to go inside the MRI gantry without proper screening with checks and balances. With this, I would like to conclude, and I am open for any questions anybody can ask now.
Now you can unmute yourself and you can, raise your queries if you have any query.
If there are no questions, maybe you can take the questions from them later. You can send it by mail to me.
Sure, sir.
Then I will be able to answer to those questions.
Sure.
Thank you for sparing your time and patiently hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.